and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
So today I'll be giving my week 6 college football predictions. So starting with Wisconsin at Michigan. I'm gonna go ahead and say who I think's gonna win this game before I talk about the game. I'm taking Michigan to win this game, and not just by a little either. I think they're going to win in a blowout because Wisconsin is a disaster. Again, Luke Fickle is going to get fired. And I don't even think that Fickle is a bad coach because he did have a lot of success at Cincinnati. I just think he's not the right fit for Wisconsin. Wisconsin just lost by 17 points to Maryland, 27 to 10. Wisconsin has no offense. They rank 110th in the country in rushing, averaging only 117.8 rushing yards per game, and they rank 89th in passing, averaging only 205.8 passing yards per game. And they rank 111th in scoring, averaging only 20.8 points per game. And going against this loaded Michigan defense, I think Wisconsin's not only going to hardly be able to score anything, I think they're going to have a hard time even getting first downs. I think they're going to have a lot of 3 and outs in this game. And Wisconsin's defense has not been very good this year either. I think Michigan is going to run all over them like they did against Nebraska. I think Michigan will run for over 200 yards in this game. And Justice Haynes has been a superstar for them this season at running back. He's rushed for over 100 yards in all 4 games, and I look for that to continue in this game. And he's averaging 8.1 yards per carry. I think Michigan will control the line of scrimmage on both sides. And Michigan's offense, it has still been one-dimensional, even with Bryce Underwood at quarterback, because they're still bad at the wide receiver position. Donovan McCulley has been the only decent wide receiver they've had this season. But I don't think that's going to matter in this game. I think Michigan will score a lot and get the win over Wisconsin by a score of 42 to 13. So now Kentucky at Georgia. Georgia in this game, I think, is going to play like the Georgia teams from a few years ago that won the national championships. And I don't think that Georgia is going to be able to consistently play like that the rest of the season. But coming off another loss to Alabama, I think they're going to be very frustrated, and Kirby Smart will have them very motivated for this game. I think they'll take their frustration out on Kentucky, which, to be honest, is not a very good team. Probably the worst or second worst team in the SEC. And Georgia, I think, will play their first complete game against the Power Four opponent in this game. Because against Tennessee, their offense played pretty well, but their defense didn't play well. And against Alabama, their offense did not play very well, but their defense did play well. Because I know their defense had another bad start in that game, but they really held Alabama to just 21 points offensively. because that field goal Alabama got was because of a Georgia turnover that put Alabama in field goal range. And Georgia's defense gave their offense plenty of opportunities in the second half to win that game. And now in college football, if you hold a team to just 21 offensive points, you're going to win almost every time. And Georgia's defense, I think, will be in good shape for this Kentucky game because their secondary has been struggling. Georgia's has, but Kentucky's quarterback situation is probably the worst in the SEC. Florida's the only team that might come close to as bad there as Kentucky is. Because that Zach Calzada that was the starting quarterback for them at the beginning of the season, who I watched play in the Ole Miss game, was terrible, and he's been out with an injury since the Ole Miss game, and the backup quarterback, Cutter Boyley is his name. He's been terrible too. He against South Carolina last week was only 10 of 19, which is only a 52.6% for only 124 yards and 0 touchdowns, and he threw two interceptions. And I saw Calzada may return as the starting quarterback for Kentucky in this game, but Kentucky is going to want to run the football most of the time, and Georgia's run defense has been good this year. They held Alabama to just 117 yards rushing, averaging only 3.1 yards per run. And Kentucky's offensive line, while it played pretty well against Ole Miss, it gave up 6 sacks against South Carolina. And I think Georgia will control the line of scrimmage on both sides in this game. And Georgia's offense, I think, will be able to be balanced in this game. Now, Kentucky does have a decent defense, but I think Gunnar Stockton will have a good game. And Bowens for Georgia at running back was great against Alabama, running 12 times for 119 yards and a touchdown, averaging 9.9 yards per carry. Kirby Smart should probably start him at running back in this game. So I've got Georgia getting the win over Kentucky by a score of 38-14. So now Vanderbilt at Alabama. So this will be a big test for Alabama on whether they can stay focused or not coming off a win against Georgia, because last year, the week after they beat Georgia, they did lose to Vanderbilt. And while Vanderbilt did play great in that game, to be honest, if Alabama and Vanderbilt had played 10 times last year, Alabama probably would have won 9 of them. And Vanderbilt, though, is a better team, it appears, than they were last year. They're 5-0 for the first time in 17 years. And while I still right now wouldn't consider Vanderbilt to be a possibility to win the SEC, I do think they've got a good chance of getting to 8-4. And if they do win this game against Alabama, then I will say they're a possibility to win the SEC. But Vanderbilt's offense has been playing really well this year. Diego Pavie has been a better passer than he was last year, and he
Contra su gran línea de Alabama, depende de cuánto espacio consigas.
No desde la escopeta. Este año tienen 2 o 3 en cuarta oportunidad. Pavio quiere lanzar. Va por el medio. Lo atrapan. Touchdown de Vanderbilt y Junior Cherry.
he's still a good runner like last year. and Vanderbilt will have the tight end advantage in this game because they have Eli Stowers, one of the best tight ends in the country. He in these 5 games already has 22 catches for 301, averaging 13.7 a catch and a couple of touchdowns. And I do think that Diego Pavia will give Alabama's defense problems again. And Vanderbilt's defense, though, is very concerning going into this game because they were horrible last week against Utah State, giving up 35 points. I think Ty Simpson and Ryan Williams will both have big games in this one. And Alabama does have a big line of scrimmage advantage over Vanderbilt, I think. And I think this will be a close game. And I think there's a good chance Vanderbilt will lead for most of this game. But I think Alabama is going to be very motivated for this game, with it being a revenge game. And Alabama does have a much better defense than Vanderbilt does. I think Alabama's defense will be able to get some big stops that they weren't able to get last year on Vanderbilt, and I think that makes the difference. I've got Alabama getting the win over Vanderbilt by a score of 31-24. So, Miami at Florida State. So it really depends on which Florida State team shows up for this game. If the Florida State team that played against Alabama shows up in this one, I'm pretty sure Florida State wins. But if the Florida State team that played against Virginia shows up, Miami no doubt will win. And if a Florida State team in between those two shows up, I'd say it's a 50-50 game. But Florida State's defense, even though it did give up a lot of points to Virginia, Virginia's offense has been pretty good this year. So I don't think it was quite as bad on the Florida State defense as it appeared. But if Florida State's going to win this game, they are going to have to play better defense than they did in that Virginia game because Miami's offense is loaded with talent. Their quarterback Carson Beck is a much better passer than Castellanos at Florida State is, and if Florida State's defensive line plays like it did against Virginia, Miami's offensive line will push them around. And Miami's running backs, Mark Fletcher and Jamar Brown, have made one of the best running back combinations this season. In these 4 games, they've combined for 594 and 9 touchdowns. Now, Florida State's offense has a lot more quarterback runs than Miami's does. And it is good for Florida State in this game that they've got a quarterback that's good at running, because Miami has 2 elite pass rushers, Akeem Messidor and Reuben Bain. Reuben Bain, I think, has the talent to be a top 5 pick in the next NFL draft.
The fake to Love. They throw it out wide. Batted around and intercepted. Reuben Bain Jr., the defensive end, wound up.
And Florida State's best running back this season has been Gavin Sawchuk, the Oklahoma transfer. He has in these 4 games 42 carries for 234 and 6 touchdowns, averaging 5.6 a carry. And Miami's top 2 wide receivers are clearly Malachi Tony and C.J. Daniels. They've combined in these 4 games for 40 catches for 459 and 4 touchdowns. And Florida State's best receiver has been Deuce Robinson, the transfer from USC. He has 17 catches for 346 and 3 touchdowns, averaging a really good 20.4 a catch. But he's been their only good receiver. He's their go-to wide receiver. I think Miami is better at the line of scrimmage than Florida State is. And Miami's defense, what makes me think it is really good is the way they played against Notre Dame. Because since that game, Notre Dame has been a scoring machine. But even though I think Miami is the better team and Miami is favored in this game, I have a feeling with this game being at Florida State and it being a big rivalry game, that Florida State's defense will play really well in this game and they get the win. I've got Florida State at 24, Miami 21. So that will be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.